Shoom Starcrash.
Hold on. Should it be Shoom because you watched?
Yeah, Starcrash.
Or should it be because you watched Shoom Starcrash?
Yeah, it should be that one.
Shoom because you watched Starcrash.
All right, that's better. I use that.
All right. So, Starcrash is a 1978 film, science fantasy. I think the director specifically called it a science fantasy film.
Which makes sense.
Whether or not it was a response or a reaction or just luckily timed as it was with Star Wars, there is obviously some level of comparison that must be made there. So, we'll get into that today. Starcrash was not produced by Roger Corman, but he picked it up for distribution. So even though at the very beginning it says a Corman, New Line, whatever production, Corman just took it after the fact because the original distributor wanted nothing to do with it. Italian director, Cosi, I believe was his last name, but then went under Larry Coates, correct?
Yeah.
Luigi, yep, went by Larry Coates.
Luigi Cosi.
Some very phenomenal people in this film, from David Hasselhoff, Christopher Plummer. How do you say Marjorie?
It's Marjo Gortner, and also Robert Tessier, who has been in a bunch of stuff, mostly as a brutal thug, as he is in this.
Oh, Rocky.
Well.
Right, the
I don't know if Tessier was in Rocky or not.
Wait, are we talking about Count?
No.
Xanar?
No.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah,
sorry.
the Count was in.
The Drax character.
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
Chief Thor.
Yeah, he's
So
in
anyway,
a bunch of bad stuff.
so before we get into this whole film and why we're even doing this podcast series, I am Michael Vanderpool. I teach visual communication and graphic design. I'm joined by Dr. Alan Barris and our resident adjunct, Michael Klink.
Heyo.
How many Mountain Dews is that for you today?
2.
Nice. Teaches art, sculpture, and all those other things that
Are important.
make the world a better place. There you go. Because you watched Starcrash. Why did we watch Starcrash in the first place? Like, that's kind of my initial question here. What's our connection to Starcrash?
In my case, I think I watched Starcrash, if I remember right, because it was recommended by the trash cinema zine Cinema Sewer, done by Robin Bougie from the fine city of Vancouver. And it was in a breakdown of Star Wars ripoffs. I remember him very distinctly doing a breakdown of Alien ripoffs, some of which I've seen. And I seem to recall the recommendation being based on that. I might be remembering that wrong, but I think that was where I found it. And I think I was trying to find Battle Beyond the Stars and a bunch of other Star Wars derivatives at that point.
Mm-hmm. What about you, sir?
I was tricked.
Is it my fault?
I was tricked into watching it. One night, one evening, Vanderpool just messages me, "You got to watch Starcrash." Like, oh, okay. And then I start, I'm like, what is this? And it was amazing.
And at that point where you said, "What is this?" that was probably the same point I was like, I got to text Clink. Like when I was watching. Because I think I had seen it before. And this rewatching just happened recently. I'd seen it before either through MST3K. Did they do a version of this, I think?
The MST3K reboot on Netflix, they did it as part of their short season that they just released.
So either I'd seen it there recently or I'd seen it in the past somehow, some way. There's snippets I remember. But yes, watching it again here on Amazon Prime. It's available through Amazon Prime right now. 15 minutes in, I think I messaged you, Mr. Clink, and was like, I didn't want to have to watch the whole thing. So that's what I do. I'm like, hey, watch this so you can tell me what actually happens.
Yeah.
Since then...
Have you actually seen the whole thing now?
I have watched the whole thing probably at least 5 times within the past...
Golly.
2 months. And for me, every time I watch it, it gets better.
That's the opposite for me. The first time I watched it, I was like, what is this? This is amazing. And it was a bunch of, wait, what? But then as I kept watching it, I was expecting those, as we'll probably talk about later on, those WTF moments. And it wasn't as fun because I knew what to expect, and I knew I kind of could start seeing the story kind of play out. Whereas before, it was, I have no idea what's going on. Now all of a sudden they're doing this. Now this is happening. There's a giant robot for some reason, and then this happens, and then there's laser beams coming out of this person. I don't understand. But now it's starting to kind of make more sense, and that's not as fun for me.
especially when the sense doesn't make sense.
Yes.
So yeah,
Like I know what to expect, and there are the story points, but still, it's like, okay, this is not very good.
I love it from the perspective of being able to analyze it, right? As especially when it has such a comparison, or can be held up in compare and contrast with Star Wars, and whether or not Star Wars came out in '76. Pretty sure,
if I remember.
Yeah, because it was Empire
yeah.
that came out in '78, right? Pretty sure.
I thought it was 80.
Yeah,
Maybe I've got my years wrong here, but Star Wars. And I'm losing nerd cred right now.
Yeah, you are.
All right. Star Wars, would have been in development for a long time. So somehow, some way, I'm assuming that they knew that Star Wars was going to be made, and just like every derivative comes around, like to riff off and get some money from being having a very loose, right, resemblance to that. Somehow, some way, the idea of Star Wars influenced Starcrash. I guess is probably the longest way possible to say that.
Oh, and Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope came out in 1977, according to IMDb. So yes, this is in appropriate timing to be a Rush ripoff in certain ways. It is also possible that they had access to either they looked at the trailers or that they looked at the movie posters or something like that, and maybe ripped off like things like the lightsaber from that.
Laser sword.
Laser sword.
I didn't even think about that. If you base a movie on the original Star Wars trailer or poster, you might get something like this.
Yep.
Because they have no idea the story at all or anything. So it's just this terrible weapon, and then laser swords, and then a scruffy-haired blonde kid, and
And I believe I'd have to go into some of our notes here. If we look at, there's one of these things. One of the posters for this film, should have pulled it up, is actually a blatant ripoff of the Star Wars poster. And we watched the trailer's right here. If we could watch that again if we wanted to. The trailer's sexy. Mm-hmm. The trailer and the poster for this sells this movie. And back in the day, before reviews existed and Rotten Tomatoes existed, that's how you picked a movie, right? Especially the dawn of video stores. Like, it was that cover and that blurb that sold it.
The Italians really know their movie posters. I know of at least one movie, Warriors of the Lost World, that was a crazy, I think it was Edward Sarlui, if I remember right, who I think they had hired the director, David Worth, to direct a poster. They had a designer who did a poster, and then they gave it to Worth and said, make a movie about this.
Wow, okay, so working backwards.
And again, if you just look at any particular shot of the movie, it looks Mad Maxy, it looks post-apocalyptic, it looks not that bad. And that's true for a lot of the Italian post-apocalyptic ones, like we're going to see The New Barbarians later on. Mm-hmm. That movie is kind of in the same vein. It's got Fred Williamson in it also, and it has some other common elements. And that style of that movie, I mean, if you take a frame from it, it looks weird and strange and kind of cool. But it's when you try and like put a story into that it's just, oh no, this is not coming true. In fact, it's quite terrible in some really strange ways, which we'll get to. But
so, what was this movie then trying to do? I mean, as we look at it, right? Because you have to make it a determination, right? We have to assume when we analyze films that everything that we see is there on purpose.
Yes.
Except for the boom that might be in the background.
Right.
For the most part, the director and the production, it's there on purpose. Is this film then, should we be viewing it as a satire, farce, actual, like, legitimate, like, endeavor? Or what would be the proper word there? But, like, a serious endeavor? It's not Spaceballs.
It's not Spaceballs, and it's not Galaxina. It's not... It's really weird. It's trying to be kind of comic booky. Because we got, like, Stella Star. Come on. what a lame name for your main character.
Right.
I'm positive they could have come up with something better than that, but they wanted her to sound like, like sci-fi comic booky.
Yeah.
Okay.
But while they put in little elements like that, it's a little bit Flash Gordon-y in that kind of respect, but it's not intended to be humorous either. It's not intended to be a parody.
Mm-hmm.
So it's strange. It's in a very weird category for me. It's trying to be lighthearted fantasy, but not funny, not a parody of that kind of thing either, as far as I can tell.
Seems to me that they just made it to make money.
And then there's that.
It's because Star Wars either just came out or is coming out, and everybody's like, "Oh my god! Like this changed the landscape of cinema forever." And
we put Star in the title, and it's going to sell double, right?
Star, and then the opening shot is the big ship that just looks like spruces from model kits glued onto it.
Yeah.
But
so
yeah, that's pretty much how I see it. It's just they're trying to cash off of what's already been done, but they don't have the budget, or the actors, or the writers.
So, and if we had to maybe compare it to like a film like The Room, which is a serious film, or the intent was serious and it
Very
became
serious. Deadly serious.
What it is now, I don't think this was meant to be that serious. like Cozy's in his mind was not Tommy Wiseau trying to make his opus or whatever it is.
Yeah, I don't even think it's in, as far as serious level, I don't think it's even as intended to be a series of Star Wars, which is taken fairly deadpan throughout. And a lot of the more ridiculous elements of that kind of movie were kind of edited out of the Star Wars process over time. Also, the Italians were masters of doing the rip-off movie. Probably the most blatant example I've seen of this, and it's somewhat infamous on the internet because of one incredibly stupid shot from it, would be The Last Shark, which is incredibly blatant ripoff of Jaws.
Really?
And it involves the worst Jaws, worst shark effects of any movie. They are laughably risible. They are so terrible.
I'm adding it to my queue right now.
Yeah. It needs to be seen. It's incredible. But they did all kinds of movies like this, and the Italians were also big on like the fake sequel, like a movie. Out, and then they'd call another movie like
Troll 2, right?
Yeah,
because that's Italian director.
Same kind of idea where they would do another movie and then say this is like the sequel to this movie, even though they have nothing to do with one another.
All right.
So what's interesting here, then, if we're going to take it as in that way, whatever that is, not as a farce, not as something meant to be comical, as I think the director specifically stated, as a science fantasy versus science fiction, because that does change. Science fiction should be more real, I would argue, where science fantasy has more fantastical elements.
There's also a pile of Ray Harryhausen in this. All of the stop motion stuff looks like his skeletons.
Yeah.
I'm that big Talos looking iron golem, I guess, that the queen is ordering around. And then the smaller robots, which they actually refer to as golems. Again, they're classic stop motion skeletons.
So I think in that vein, we're going to obviously be continuing to look at it with Star Wars as kind of like its mirror or foil or whatever, however you want to term it. Star Wars, $11 million budget. This movie had a $4 million budget.
That just makes me laugh.
Wow. Okay.
So
how did they spend $4 million on this movie?
Fetish outfits.
Okay. All right. Okay.
As somebody who has done budgets for films, you spend a lot of money really fast.
Either that or craft services. They got the
Well,
best
that's
sandwiches.
They were
The movie was crap, but it was amazing food.
they were shooting in Argentina. These actors, I think, were fairly popular, even though who's the female? What's Stella Star?
Caroline Monroe, if I remember right.
I believe she was a relatively famous B movie actress from horror films, so like she probably didn't come that cheap. Those sets for in the day and those models aren't bad. Those models are horribly filmed.
Right.
They could have been filmed better. for sure.
Not so much close up on the little spruces of the models. And,
Well, I think so. We get a lot, and maybe this is getting us into our WTF moments, right? Because there are excessive ship shots, and that was ship. Although I can understand how you could confuse it with another SIH word.
Yes,
ship shots. And the biggest issue is, I think the details of the models are good. The biggest issue is the lighting. Because if we think about the lighting of the models in Star Wars, specifically, it's very harsh, right? Your shadows are really, really harsh because that's kind of how it would be in space, right? But if you look at these models, the shadow, it looks like it's not done, it's not lit that way. Or the models are not painted in a way to imply that.
But I do want to say the stars in the movie, like not the actual stars, like the celestial stars.
Not David Hasselhoff.
Not David Hasselhoff, even though he does look pretty in this. The stars in the background are amazing looking. Just the different colors, and it very, like you were saying, it very much lends itself to the comic book aspect because stars are not just white usually in comic books or anything like that. You want to make them look spectacular and eye-catching. And that's the first thing that caught my eye, and then we got this ship, and it's...
that started nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a flatter white, kind of maybe light grayish ship, and it's just kind of lit where it's flatly lit. Yeah. But I do like the stars.
So, WTF moments.
I think, and I'll read it as it is immortalized here. You know, my son, I wouldn't be Emperor of the Galaxy if I didn't have some powers at my disposal. Imperial battleship, halt the flow of time!
Yes. That was my, I mean, of all the WTF moments, that has to be the biggest, right?
Yes.
In this film, near the climax...
Are we doing spoilers? Is that what's happening?
Oh, spoilers, yes. He's going to be swearing.
There will be spoilers throughout this series because we will just get excited and forget.
Yeah, exactly. So remind me to add the spoiler thing after the swoosh.
Yeah.
I was just like, wow. It's Superman the movie, right? It happens almost the exact same point.
That was more believable.
Superman the movie?
Going backwards around the world makes time go backwards. That's just science.
That's bad when this film's story effects, whatever, are more real than Superman the movies because the whole spinning the earth backwards, there's lots of problems there.
Yes. Mass death.
Yes. So once we get past the Armageddon, time reverses. Yeah, but it didn't affect that. It didn't stop time for them because they were able to leave. Just totally. You can't even try to explain it.
It's a wave your hands, don't think about it, look this way kind of deal.
What's interesting, though, is that is exactly what you and I, Clink, talked about this. This is what Star Wars does. They're like, oh, don't pay attention.
Yeah.
All we had to do was blow the Tantive 4 out of the sky, and who cares about the freaking planes because they're all in particle bits. But Star Wars, with that action, throws you right in and doesn't even give you room to question. Right? Where here, you're at that moment, and you have no choice but to be like, okay, sure.
But, to be fair, I think the movie prepares you for this with all the other moments that happen.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of them.
The nipples on the Queen's giant golem robot, I think, were one of the earlier ones for me. Just the okay.
Well, if they're a race of women warriors,
I suppose
they're not going to care about that type of thing, except their uniforms that they have do care. I don't know.
I need to.
MPAA, was that a thing for these people? I don't know.
I guess probably the second most famous set of artificial nipples in cinema after Batman.
Yes.
Whatever Batman film that was.
I was thinking Total Recall, but okay.
Total Recall? Oh, no. That is a great movie. That might hopefully show up as because of Starcrash, right?
Total Recall will get mentioned next week because of a connection we won't get into.
Okay.
Awesome. Yes.
Y'all wait for it.
Teaser for next week.
What was your WTF moment? Like,
My WTF moment was that initial moment with you, or when I messaged you, of like loosely like trying to watch this as a film, like just trying to like make sense of everything as a whole without focusing on any one thing. And 15 minutes in, when Stella Star shows up in the prison camp in a fetish outfit.
And nobody else is wearing a fetish.
Yes,
To be
and
very
I'm
clear.
just like, what the freak is going on here? I had no clue how we got to this point in the story. I had no clue what was going on. It was basically my reaction to you was this whole first 15 minutes was just to get to this point where we could sexualize the Star.
And the prison is apparently having them move like roughly beach ball sized chunks of ore up a ramp into a hole, and then they go down the ramp, and then they get it again. And it's in the size of like maybe half of a gymnasium. It's not even that big an area. It's just insane.
but the way she even escapes the prison is just, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm going to leave. And then the guard's like, you're not going to leave. And then she leaves.
Well, and after a bunch of the prisoners who help her get gunned down, and then she runs away.
And that's why this film gets better for me every time I watch it, because as somebody who likes to analyze things and rewrite stories, I mean, you've seen my rewrites for some things, and I want to write a prequel to this stupid movie now after all the watching it to try to help rationalize what's happening in this one in my head. Like when Elle and Thor, Elle is the robot and Thor is our version of, we call him Drax because that's who he looks like, come to now save or break her out of the prison after having been responsible for putting her in the. It's almost as if this movie is retconning itself.
Yeah.
It would have been a much more dynamic, interesting scene if they would have actually broke her out versus her breaking herself out and the ship landing in the field exactly where she's running. Like, the choices that they made here, they could have easily made alternate choices.
Yes.
That would have made a lot more sense. But,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. WTF moments.
Other one, Acton. When he gets shot at by Thor.
Yes.
And Thor's like, why aren't these death rays hurting you? And he's like, well, they can't hurt me. And you're shooting him back at him with his hand.
Yeah.
There was no...
Looking smug.
Yeah, there was no setup for this at all. Like, just out of nowhere. By the way, I have abilities. And I can be whatever I want because plot.
Because I'm magic.
And I think that's a big, huge failure of the storytelling in general, or I should say the lack of story showing. They explain too many things away through dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that is obviously not a great way to make cinema.
At least they didn't use narration for all of that. At least. We can thank our lucky stars for that. Our lucky Starcrash for that.
Well, and I think that was, again, this whole movie as a WTF moment. The first time I watched it, I was like, what the freak is even going on? Because I was watching it and not focusing on the dialogue. If you read this movie through its dialogue, it makes more sense than trying to watch it as a complete film.
Yes.
I can see that.
Because it says, we're, instead of showing... Stella Star and Acton being, what are you, smugglers, whatever they are, Han Solo-ish type characters.
Yep.
It explains that away through dialogue.
Right.
But it shows in the beginning
Doing what?
being chased by the police that eventually become their friends.
But we don't even really
without
know
any explanation.
Yes.
Oh, so another thing, Acton can see time. Can see throughout time, and he says he didn't tell her the future because that's against the law.
Oh yeah, that's the other big WTF.
What law?
But that alludes to an even better movie, because if there's a law, that means there's time cops. If there's time police in this universe, I want to see that movie.
Especially since it involves Jean-Claude Van Damme showing up into this mess.
As long as he doesn't touch his previous self, he'll be okay. Because science.
I've never seen Time Cop.
It's a movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme. And it's time travel, so I have to watch
it involves him kicking things.
Maybe some splits. But yeah,
Maybe.
kicking.
Yeah, if it's
Just maybe.
I mean, is it really a Van Damme movie if he has not doing full splits?
Yeah. Or shirt off most of the time, too.
I watched Bloodsport again over the summer. That was fun.
Oh, God.
We can do the whole canon.
Sport is at
catalog
least
as well.
entertaining. I sat through Universal Soldier. That was not entertaining.
What about Street Fighter? That's a good one, too.
I haven't seen Street Fighter yet, but I will.
Don't watch it.
But I will be.
Back to this Starcrash and WTF. When the Amazonian queen, who is a thing, is angry about something.
I have a theory about that.
She wants revenge and invokes revenge again, and it seems to be the robot she's targeting initially.
Which robot?
L.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Which is weird, but anyway,
Yeah.
theory.
Okay,
But
so
hold on, before you get there, though,
yeah.
the laser beams at the TV screen projecting the robot being how she controls the robot.
Yes.
I think that was a visual way to show that she can control him.
So the only real, so the one time they're trying to visually tell the story, they fail miserably.
Yes.
Because like that is I would rather have seen them hit a button, say robot kill, and press the button. That'd have been much better visual.
Well, now you know why they've told things and not shown you.
Yes.
All right, so at the end of Starcrash, the Count, whatever his name is, releases his starfighters, or his fighters. They're the exact same ship as the Amazonian ships that attack. They look like they're the same.
Okay.
That attack our heroes when the Amazonians were attacking them. So my theory is the reason why she's mad is the Count went and got the best fighters from that planet. And again, this would be a better movie. Best fighters from that planet and took them into his realm and made them fight for him. And that's why all of her fighters, all of her guards were crap. Because these are the second stringers. These are the juniors, not the varsities. And that's why she's upset. Because they have her people.
But why is she taking that out on the robot? Or Stella, for
Plot?
matter.
Reasons?
It's about as good as we're going to get. Oh.
That's all I got. I theoried as much as I could theory.
That is a better movie. That is the Starcrash expanded universe right there, which when Disney acquires the property will be wiped out of existence. And fanboys will be very upset because they lost that beautiful story.
I'm still upset about that. Not this Starcrash thing with Star Wars. Anyways.
So part of the plot is the Emperor, who's the good guy in this one, requests Stella Star, L, and Drax and Acton, who basically are a version of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
Loose version of Guardians of the Galaxy. To go find his son, who was on the ship that was originally attacked at the very beginning of the film.
Right.
Although we don't see him there. There's only 2 people on this ship. But then there's 3 launches, three space pods that fly off.
3 MacGuffins, yes, that fly off.
Does he tell them that's his son?
Yes, I believe so.
If I remember right, he mentions that his son, because he does that dramatic turn. And by the way, that is my choice for later on, because I'm going to forget otherwise, for the moment in which a little class arrives in Starcrash, because Christopher Plummer, he's phoning it in, but he's good at phoning it in. He does this, he's walking away in the astral projection he's sending to them, and then he turns around and reveals that thing about his son. And it's very dramatic.
Yeah.
Like
melodramatic, right? I mean,
yeah. But at least it's acting and not whatever the rest of these people were doing.
Reading from the script the day before.
So Stella...
and getting really excited about killing people.
Stella and Acton find that first launch out floating in space. It's a spaceship. Because what else would it be? Right?
They go to save people?
Yeah, and then how that person gets, we don't.
But they could have saved people and not take the cargo because they're smugglers.
Yeah, exactly. So it's totally out of character. I'm a smuggler, right? This is where the show versus tell fails, right? You tell me I'm a smuggler, but you show that I'm a compassionate human being. Doesn't make any sense.
Right.
But then I believe, and I'd have to rewatch this again, dear God, when they go up, when they're hired later on and go off as the team of 4, they go find 3 launches. So there's actually 4 launches that they encounter as part of this.
Okay, that was my issue. Thinking about it.
Oh, I didn't even think about it again. Ow.
I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
So they are orbiting that ice planet. The big ship is. The 3 smaller ships.
The barren ice planet of snow.
Yes. But the big ship crashes on that ice planet.
Okay.
And that's one of the 4-ish.
Oh, is that?
I think I'm actually
Okay.
trying to use logic with this.
Oh, because they remark that the big engines are like, well, I don't think they say they're frozen. They say something like they burned or something like that. Yeah, I remember.
So I guess we have to just rewatch again, and maybe
I'm-
when I write the sequel to this, I'll have to go through and make sure I button up all of the things. We'll explain it away in the sequel.
David Hasselhoff has laser eyes.
Really?
That mask thing.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was such a horrible mask too. I think they were trying to like pretend like or make it ambiguous whether he was a good guy or a bad guy with the construction of that mask. But for $4 million, they should have had better effects, especially practical effects like a mask. I mean, paper mache would have been better one if they freaking had there,
and better makeup too. Poor David Hasselhoff looks like he's wearing the same shade of pink lipstick that Stella is in a lot of
probably
scenes.
will.
And he might very well have been, but
So David Hasselhoff's character, Simon or whatever his name is, he hangs out with Stella Star for a total of 5 minutes. Then when she finds out from the Emperor that he's the Emperor's son, she looks at him like she's hurt that he didn't tell her, even though they're looking for the Emperor's son. At the beginning, they didn't know that the Emperor's son was missing. At the end, they acted like, what? He's your son? Your son's missing? But then they were told that at the beginning of the movie.
yes.
Right? Okay, I wasn't crazy. Okay.
You are not crazy. It does not make sense.
I was just trying to revamp what I saw, and yeah.
We're not crazy. They're the ones who are crazy.
I think a lot of this is the fundamental misunderstanding of like why Star Wars worked.
Yes.
It didn't work simply because of the special effects. It has at least a decent story and decent characters, right?
Yeah.
Again, based on spaghetti westerns and all that other stuff, it's just repackaging of an existing tried and true story.
Decent banter as well.
Yes.
It
The relationships between the characters.
It keeps things a little bit light, but then we get back to the story, and it's not parody or weird like whatever pseudo parody world this ends up being for Starcrash.
And even though I would argue all of the characters in Star Wars other than Han are flat,
Right.
you're still able to identify with them and empathize with them.
R2 is one of the more dynamic.
Yeah, later we find out he can fly.
Well, but
But yes.
I
you're right.
guarantee you, in A New Hope, he is cussing up a storm.
Oh, yeah.
He is...
And also, he drives the entire narrative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, his whole, like, trick of getting Luke to take off the regulator.
Yep.
Phenomenal, right?
Genius.
I mean, by far the coolest character in this whole film.
We know, again, with the robot cursing, we know that based on C-3PO's reactions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, it's like you're hearing only the straight man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the comedian is silent. And yet it still works. That works really well.
But there is absolutely none of that in Starcrash or other films of this ilk, right? None of that attention to the relationships or characters' internal drama, right? It's all just like, we need to get from A to B to C to show some ships and put somebody in a sexy outfit. And how is the fastest way
For
to do
this
that?
big story that doesn't make any damn sense. And
Yeah. Because it really is. Starcrash really is just a good and evil story, right?
Right.
Like, the Emperor is the good guy, and Count Xan Arth, the thug from Rocky, the mafia boss in Rocky, is the bad guy. But even there, like, I still don't know who I should really root for because it's not that clear.
Right.
And I think I brought this up to both of you earlier. If we were to watch these films without sound, just taking as the visual, I think the story of Star Wars is crystal clear. This one, not so much. Other than Xanarth's costume and that look of being a devil / vampire, whatever it is, that's pretty visually clear. But everybody else is a little ambiguous without being told who they are.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Yes.
Because if I just rewatching this movie in my head, I would have no clue that Stella Star and Axon are smugglers.
Oh, yeah.
There's absolutely nothing other than them being called that implies that.
To be fair, Han and Chewie were just called that, and they said they were.
No, cargo hold. Remember? They show the...
Oh, that they hid in the cargo
Yeah,
hold?
exactly.
Yeah, but that could also... I mean, if you were to mute this, you wouldn't know it's a cargo hold. You'd just be like, oh, they hid in the compartment.
Although they do hang out in a scummy bar.
Okay.
And they don't wear outfits that look like military uniforms, which is the other thing. Like, Acton is, like, wearing, like, he looks like he just got laid off from his job with the visitors from V.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
visually.
he looks like he's military. And I don't know what... The Stella looks like she just got off her...
she
got off her shift at wherever she's dancing on a pole half the time. So
she reminds me of Aaron Gray from... who played the character in Buck Rogers. Right?
Yeah,
same
Wilma
hair,
Deering, yeah.
Same hairdo, same look. I think that was her name, Aaron Gray. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So because of Starcrash, this is going to be an epic journey.
Oh!
Of epic journeys.
Last question. So, the terrible weapon, the red monsters...
Yeah.
That was a thing on the planet with computers. And then the Count said that was his weapon. But then he used that weapon to blow up the planet that had the Emperor's son on to bring the Emperor so the Emperor would die. But that was his terrible weapon that he was going to unleash onto the Emperor's homeworld. Yet he was going to blow it up on his planet. Right? I love this. They're taking things out of context.
It's funny because they call those red corpuscles floating in space or whatever monsters, and like it didn't seem like they were monsters. It was just all very confusing.
Blobs, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And somehow they survived the attack because.
Yeah, because again, I don't know what.
And then they're super excited about having survived the worst weapon in the world.
Which it seemed like the worst weapon was supposed to be that hand chip thing where they're going to punch or other words people.
Other words. Yes. Other words. Thank you for using other words.
PG.
Well, I swore, so it's PG-13, right?
Well, I mean, we could take that out.
No, I'm not editing this.
I think the other word we're discussing is not appropriate for
I'm going
PG-13.
to tell you this right now. I am not putting the time and effort into editing this podcast.
Reasonable.
So, if there's
they didn't edit, so why should we?
Yeah, exactly. So, going forward, because we're running out of time here, next film...
Galaxina?
Galaxina.
And Galaxina, 100%, because you watch Starcrash, it shows up, right?
Yes.
And for those of you that want to play along at home, watch it between now and next Wednesday when we do this. And
always watch the trailer first.
Yes. The trailer will fill you full of false hope that it's going to be a tight, awesome, funny,
well,
serious, deadly movie.
There have been some movies that Mike has said, oh, you need to check this movie out. And I've looked up the trailer. I'm like, I'm not watching that because of the trailer.
Starcrash's trailer is good.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But usually these movies will have like at least good trashy trailers.
You
like the
would
kind of
hope.
thing you'd show at a grindhouse theater and go, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hobo with a Shotgun.
Yeah.
That's the film. Have you seen that?
Yeah, yeah.
Have you seen
I've
it?
not seen that.
Oh, we'll get
Rutger
there.
Hauer.
Yeah, it's the color.
Awesome.
The color in
Rutger
that
Hauer.
is beautiful, dude.
Okay, as long as it's not, is it Uyan Bull or whatever his name is, the Postal guy? The guy who directed the movie Postal?
Oh, I don't.
He's
Yeah,
known
I
for
don't
his
know.
really, really bad movies. Epically bad?
But because of Starcrash,
Yes.
this thing exists.
We found Starcrash on Amazon Prime. I
Yes.
think we should mention that.
Yeah, and that's where we're getting all of the where we generated our initial list.
Yeah. And that list may change based on reality of stumbling on something you just have to talk about in the moment. And throughout this whole thing, we're going to try to make connections back to Starcrash, right? Because I think that's one of the most interesting things right now is all these algorithms out there that are telling us what to watch, right?
Yes.
Like, I read an article about Netflix actually deciding which shows to make with which actors based on analytics.
Interesting.
That's why House of Cards got made, because supposedly people wanted to see some Kevin Spacey in some political movie.
Not
Or some
anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
algorithm.
Yeah.
don't hire a perv.
Dr.
Sorry.
Alan Barris,
Yeah.
Michael Klink, Mike Vanderpool. Bye.
Bye!
Bye.